Anxiety feels like an enemy, a relentless storm inside your chest, a mind spinning out of control, a voice that screams danger even when there's none. It hijacks your peace and pushes you to the edge, making you believe you're broken or weak. But this visceral chaos isn't your fault. It's not a betrayal from within. It's your brain firing warning shots, a survival alarm, not a death sentence. Here's the brutal truth. Anxiety isn't here to destroy you. It's desperately trying to keep you safe. The problem isn't anxiety itself. It's how it's showing up, how it's misfiring. It's the equivalent of a smoke detector blaring when there's burnt toast, or a fire drill sounding off for a false alarm. The message is clear. Pay attention, but the method is clumsy and overwhelming. Most people wage war against anxiety like it's the enemy. Medicate, distract, suppress, avoid. But silencing the signal doesn't kill the fire. It only lets it rage beneath the surface, waiting to erupt louder and more viciously. Anxiety is a messenger, screaming because it's ignored, not because it wants to punish you. If you want to stop anxiety from ruling your life, the first step is brutal honesty. Anxiety isn't your enemy. It's the guardian with a faulty compass. To heal, you have to stop fighting the messenger and start decoding the message, no matter how uncomfortable that truth is. Anxiety is not a glitch in your system. It's an ancient biological mechanism designed to protect you. Think of it as your internal alarm, wired to detect threats and activate your fight or flight response. When your nervous system senses danger, real or perceived, it triggers anxiety to prepare your body and mind to act swiftly. This is survival in its rawest form, your brain's way of keeping you alive in a world that hasn't always been safe. Your body reacts to anxiety with physical signs: a racing heart, shallow breathing, tense muscles, heightened senses. These aren't random symptoms, but carefully orchestrated responses to prime you for action. Your brain floods your system with adrenaline, sharpening your focus and preparing you to either confront or escape danger. Anxiety is your body's way of saying, "Pay attention. Something's wrong." Without this mechanism, we'd be vulnerable to threats we can't even consciously recognize. However, the problem starts when this alarm system becomes oversensitive. Your brain doesn't differentiate well between real and imagined threats, especially when past trauma or chronic stress has rewired its patterns. If you've experienced pain or danger before, your nervous system learns to anticipate it constantly. It becomes hypervigilant, sounding the alarm even when there's no immediate threat. This is why anxiety can feel relentless and exhausting, as if you're stuck in fight or flight mode 24/7. This overactivity doesn't mean your brain is broken. It means it's stuck in a protective pattern that's outlived its usefulness. Anxiety isn't malicious or irrational. It's doing what it was trained to do, even if that training no longer fits your present reality. The nervous system is trying to protect you from harm, but it's doing so with outdated information and a high sensitivity to perceived danger. It's like a smoke detector that goes off every time you cook, warning you of a fire that doesn't exist. The real issue isn't anxiety itself. It's when the alarm won't shut off. When your brain keeps sending signals of danger long after the threat has passed, your body remains in a constant state of tension and alertness. This chronic activation damages your well-being. Sleep suffers, concentration fades, relationships strain, and your overall quality of life diminishes. Anxiety becomes a trap, a loop that feeds on itself. Understanding anxiety as a survival response shifts the narrative from blame to curiosity. Instead of hating or fearing anxiety, you learn to see it as a messenger that's trying to keep you safe, even if its methods are flawed. This perspective opens a door to compassion for your nervous system, your past experiences, and yourself. It also provides a clearer starting point for healing, which begins with listening rather than silencing. To reclaim control, you need to retrain your nervous system to recognize safety again. This is neither quick nor easy, but it's possible. Through mindful practices, grounding techniques, and sometimes professional help, you can teach your brain to distinguish between real threats and false alarms. Anxiety won't disappear overnight, but its grip will loosen as you build resilience and new patterns of safety. Often mistaken for a voice of truth, but anxiety isn't delivering facts, it's delivering information, raw and unfiltered. When anxiety tells you something is about to go wrong or you're going to fail, it's projecting a worst-case scenario, not reporting reality. Your brain is wired to anticipate threats, so it amplifies doubts and fears to push you toward caution. That's the core function of anxiety, not to lie outright, but to exaggerate risk for your protection. The problem is that anxiety doesn't come with a fact checker. It mixes past experiences, assumptions, and fears into a single overwhelming message. It doesn't differentiate between a real, present danger and an imagined one. When anxiety shouts, "They're going to leave," or "You can't handle this," it's tapping into deep emotional wounds and insecurities. But these statements are not verdicts carved in stone. They are emotional signals, cries for attention, not unbreakable truths. Your emotional brain is wired to respond faster than your rational mind can catch up. That means anxiety often hijacks your perception before you can analyze the evidence. The challenge is to separate the signal from the noise, to identify what anxiety is trying to communicate beneath the alarmist surface. This requires slowing down enough to ask, what is this anxiety really trying to warn me about? What need is it signaling? More often than not, anxiety is tied to unmet needs, safety, control, certainty, belonging, fundamental human requirements that, when threatened or absent, trigger alarm. Anxiety isn't random. It's rooted in vulnerability. Beneath the panic lies a part of you that feels unsafe, powerless, or isolated. When you approach anxiety as a messenger bringing information about these needs, you move from fear to understanding. Distinguishing whether your fear is based on the present or the past is essential. Anxiety often drags memories of old wounds into current moments, overlaying today's reality with yesterday's pain. This distortion clouds judgment, making small problems seem like disasters. By asking if the fear belongs to now or to something long gone, you reclaim perspective, the necessary ground to act wisely rather than react out of habit. The key question then becomes, what does this version of me, the one feeling anxious, need to feel safe again? This inquiry cuts through the surface panic to reveal deeper layers of emotional hunger. It might be reassurance, boundaries, self-compassion, or a break from overwhelm. Naming these needs dismantles the power anxiety holds as a nebulous, frightening force. This reframing demands brutal honesty and patience. Anxiety won't vanish by wishing it away or by telling yourself it's irrational. Instead, listen to its information with curiosity and discipline. The more you identify the unmet needs behind the signal, the less anxiety will control you. It shifts from a tyrant into a guide, flawed, yes, but ultimately pointing toward what you must address. Suppressing anxiety is like trying to hold back a river with your bare hands. The harder you push it down, the more pressure builds underneath, and eventually it bursts out stronger and more destructive. When you ignore, numb, or fight your anxiety, you're telling your nervous system that the threat is real, but you're unwilling to listen. This creates confusion and tension inside your body, amplifying the alarm instead of calming it. Your nervous system doesn't operate on logic or conscious intention. It reacts based on survival instinct. When you suppress anxiety, your brain interprets this as danger still present, but your response is to silence its warnings. That disconnect triggers a feedback loop where anxiety escalates. It gets louder, more persistent, because it feels unheard and dismissed. This is why anxiety doesn't vanish by ignoring it. It intensifies, sometimes in ways that feel uncontrollable. Numbing strategies like distraction, substances, or avoidance offer only temporary relief. They don't address the root signal anxiety carries. Instead, they mask the message and keep the underlying need unmet. Think of it like putting a bandage over a bleeding wound without stopping the bleeding itself. Suppression delays the necessary confrontation and healing, making anxiety more entrenched and resistant to change. The first and hardest step is acknowledgement. Saying out loud or mentally, "Anxiety is here," shifts your relationship with it from denial to acceptance. It refuses to let anxiety fester in the shadows, which paradoxically weakens its power. Acknowledgement doesn't mean you're inviting anxiety to take over, but you're refusing to pretend it's not real. This honesty is the foundation of any meaningful work with anxiety. Next is validation. Instead of judging yourself for feeling anxious, you recognize why anxiety might be present. "I get why I feel this way" is a powerful phrase because it meets anxiety with empathy, not resistance. It humanizes the experience and stops the internal war where you punish yourself for being vulnerable. Validation soothes the emotional tension and creates space for healing. Regulating your nervous system is the practical key to lowering anxiety's volume. Techniques like deep breathing, grounding exercises, and mindful self-soothing activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's natural brake system. When your body feels safe and calm, your mind follows. Regulation isn't about stopping anxiety instantly, but about shifting your physiological state to a place where anxiety loses its grip. Holding anxiety with curiosity and care rather than shoving it away allows it to shrink naturally. When anxiety is heard, it loses the need to scream. It softens, becoming less urgent and overwhelming. This doesn't mean anxiety disappears altogether, but it moves from a raging storm to a manageable background hum. Managing anxiety isn't about crushing or erasing it. That's a battle you're unlikely to win. Instead, it's about building a working relationship with anxiety, much like you would with a difficult but necessary colleague. Anxiety is part of your internal ecosystem, and trying to fight it without understanding will only drain your energy and deepen the conflict. The real power lies in learning how to coexist and even cooperate with this powerful force within you. Daily regulation is the cornerstone of this relationship. Simple, consistent practices like breath work, cold exposure, movement, or stillness are tools to calm the nervous system and signal safety to your brain. These are not magic cures, but steady reminders to your body that the danger has passed. Over time, these rituals retrain your nervous system to shift out of hypervigilance, reducing anxiety's intensity and frequency. Discipline here matters more than intensity. It's about showing up for yourself daily. Internal dialogue reshapes the narrative you tell yourself about anxiety. Instead of berating or fearing it, speak with gratitude. "Thank you for trying to protect me. I've got it from here." This isn't about pretending anxiety is benign, but acknowledging its role honestly and taking leadership over your own emotional landscape. This dialogue weakens anxiety's grip by shifting power dynamics. You stop being its hostage and become its guide. The deeper, longer-term work happens through therapy or self-exploration. untangling where your nervous system learned these anxious patterns. Trauma, past wounds, or chronic stress conditions your brain to expect danger where there isn't any. Understanding these origins isn't about blame, but about illumination, seeing how past experiences shape present responses. This root work is the foundation for lasting change, allowing you to rewrite your nervous system's operating manual. Building internal safety is key to making anxiety less necessary. When your brain feels secure through emotional regulation, supportive relationships, and self-compassion, it no longer needs to scream for attention. Internal safety means creating a mental and emotional environment where you trust yourself to handle discomfort without panic or overwhelm. This is the silent, unseen work that transforms anxiety from a raging beast to a manageable signal. Working with anxiety means recognizing its messages without letting them control your actions. You become fluent in the language of your nervous system, interpreting warnings accurately instead of reacting out of habit or fear. This fluency gives you choice, the power to respond thoughtfully rather than compulsively. Anxiety stops being a tyrant and becomes a helpful guide, albeit an imperfect one. Transformation doesn't happen overnight. It requires patience, persistence, and sometimes discomfort. You'll stumble, feel overwhelmed, and question your progress. But each time you return to regulation, dialogue, and root work, you weaken anxiety's hold a little more. This slow dismantling builds resilience and self-trust, the true antidotes to anxiety's chaos. It's natural to hate anxiety. It feels like an unwelcome intruder, a relentless force that disrupts your peace and clouds your mind. The racing heart, the choking thoughts, the endless what-ifs, they make anxiety feel like a curse, an enemy to be defeated. But this hatred blinds you to a crucial truth. Anxiety isn't out to ruin your life. It's trying to keep you safe, even if its methods are misguided and clumsy. Anxiety is like a frightened child who learned only one way to get attention, by screaming. It never learned a better language to communicate its needs or fears. When you start to really listen, beneath the noise and panic, you hear a message rooted in protection and care. It warns of danger, not out of malice, but out of a deep-seated urge to preserve your well-being. This perspective flips anxiety from foe to reluctant ally. Silencing anxiety might seem like the quickest path to relief. But when you push it down or ignore it, you cut off vital information. Anxiety's volume only grows louder, demanding to be heard. Instead of silencing it, the challenge is to decode it, to translate its frantic signals into understandable needs and truths. This requires patience, curiosity, and courage, but it's the gateway to real calm. Working with anxiety is about partnership, not domination. It's recognizing that anxiety is part of your internal ecosystem, imperfect but essential. When you stop treating it as a monster to be crushed, you begin to reclaim control, not through force or denial, but through understanding and respect. This approach disarms anxiety's power, transforming chaos into clarity. This process isn't about quick fixes or simple tricks. It demands deep self-awareness and the willingness to face discomfort without running or shutting down. You learn to meet anxiety with compassion, not contempt. You hold space for it without surrendering your life. And in doing so, you build resilience and inner strength. Reclaiming calm through understanding is a profound act of power. It shifts you from reactive survival mode to proactive self-mastery. Instead of being controlled by your fears, you become the leader of your emotional world. This is the essence of strength, not the absence of struggle, but the presence of courage in the face of it. Ultimately, anxiety's protective nature is a reminder that your nervous system is deeply invested in your survival. It's flawed, yes, but also faithful. By learning to decode and work with anxiety, you honor this part of yourself rather than wage war on it. This alignment paves the way to lasting peace. Strength isn't about defeating anxiety. It's about making peace with it. That peace is hard-won and real, forged through understanding rather than denial. When you reach this place, you hold true power, the power to live with anxiety, not under it.